You wanna go, you wanna leave. So baby, come and get away with me. You wanna go, you wanna leave.
So I'm trying to get transferred up to El Dorado, Kansas, and I'm really interested in this job. So I start off by submitting my name and just letting my upper management know that I'm interested in this position. At the first place, they just wanted to transfer down some operators. They didn't have any plans of transferring down any craftsmen. And at this time, my position was a head craftsman at Cheyenne, Wyoming refinery. It's a journeyman position because I was doing all journeyman work, welding, pipe fitting, and all that other stuff. Sometimes I would step up as a foreman, you know, just here and there, just whenever they needed me to. And so to get all this stuff rolling, they had us go down and we had to do a test, you know, because finally they says we'll accept, you know, a couple craftsmen because we could use them up here. And so me and another welder and a machinist all decided to go along with, I think it was 14 operators, unit operators. And so the craftsmen had to go down and take a test in Colorado to see how high we scored, so that way they would know exactly where to place us down there in El Dorado, Kansas. So we went down and done all the testing and stuff like that. We had to do all this written testing and score on it. And after we scored on the written test, they had plans to fly us all up there to Kansas, because then we had to do some hands-on skills and stuff like that, and to check out the area and the plant and the real estate and all kinds of stuff, you know, just to see if we absolutely wanted to transfer up to Kansas. And so my girlfriend at the time ended up coming with me, and my son and the other baby that she had ended up staying back, and my mom and her mom took turns babysitting them while my girlfriend went with me to El Dorado, Kansas. And so we were only up there for about 4 days, you know, in El Dorado, and done all the hands-on testing. You know, we had to do rigging, tube bending for steam trays, torch setup, and cut some metal, and some various different pipe fitting offsets with threading machine. You know, just basic everyday stuff for a pipe fitter. You know, just to show them what our skills were. And so we lasted up there 4 days, and then after the 4 days they flew us back. Well, while we're up there in El Dorado, Kansas, me and my girlfriend at the time, we got in a fight, you know, and I'm just like, I can't believe this, you know, I'm down here on a business trip and we got in a fight and an argument in the motel room, and I'm just like totally not digging it, you know. And so we fly back to Cheyenne, Wyoming, and we resume our lives, you know, get back into everything. And while we're back, the refinery in El Dorado sent back, you know, our results from the written tests and also from the hands-on testing, and told us exactly where they would place us at. So the other welder that was going down there with me, he was a journeyman welder also. And so after we got our paperwork back and everything like that, I don't think he done that good on the written test, and I done a little bit better. So they said that they would start him out at a top level apprentice, and they would start me out at a low level journeyman. So their journeyman positions were a B craft, an A craft, and top craftsman. And they said that they would start me out at a B craftsman. And when he got his letter back, he wasn't real happy that they wanted to start him out as a top level apprentice, because it would be like, I think, $2 pay cut or something like that, but he wasn't liking that, you know. And I just finally told him, if you really want to go, just go, you know, because you could always, you know, move up while you're down there. And so I talked him into it, and he agreed with me on that. So getting back to my life, so me and my girlfriend are back, and like I say, things ain't still right. You know, we've always had a lot of problems, a lot of issues, a lot of arguing, stuff like that. And while we're back, you know, I'm still, you know, waiting on her to get this this test done to see who the father is of this baby. But she's not wanting to get it done, this and that, da 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 da. And finally, my cousin calls me. My cousin, it's a girl cousin, she called me and she says, "Hey, I got some news to tell you. I think you should know because you're waiting to see if this baby's yours or not, and I think you really need to know this news." Well, she calls and tells me, and she says, well, Jackie's been dating this other guy, and they were living together and everything else like that, and he's really upset because I guess Jackie told him that the baby wasn't his, that it was mine, and you know, and all this stuff. So she was just calling to let me know what was really going on. And I knew that when me and Jackie were broken up that she was dating other guys or whatever, you know, I knew. But I didn't know that they were actually living together and like really serious. And so long story short, I knew who this guy was. And so I decided to take a couple pictures of the baby and contact him myself. And I finally got the spill from him, you know. And he didn't know what to think, but I contacted him myself, and I actually was on night shift, you know, and I even called him during night shift, you know, and we talked to each other about everything that was going on and what was really going on and what was being hidden from both of us actually. And he told me that the day she had the baby, she called him up and told him that the baby wasn't his, that it was mine, that me and her got a test done and everything. And that was clearly not the case because we never got no test done, and plus you can't get results back in one day, you know. And so that's what she told him. So this whole time I'm thinking, well, she's trying to play both of us, and maybe she just thinks that she can move to Kansas with me and that'll be the end of it, and I'll just take over like the kid's mine. But I'm not that kind of guy, you know. I'll take care of my kids if they are my kid, but if they're not my kid, you know, what can you do? You got to kind of back up and rethink everything. And so as this time's going on, like we end up getting in a few more arguments, and I was real pushing her. I finally come to the conclusion when I told her, I said, you know, you need to get a blood test done on this baby before I move to Kansas. I says, if we don't know the results before it's time to go to Kansas, I says, you're not going to come with me. I says, I'm going to go by myself. And you know, this sounds real harsh and weird, but you know, that's what I was put into. I was put into that predicament. So I was ready to resume a relationship with her, just as long as, you know, if that baby was mine and we could get along and everything else. But if the baby wasn't mine, you know, I was ready to cut ties and go my own way. You know, even though that she had my son, you know, I was looking at it from the aspect of, I know she has my son, she's taking care of my son, and I'm paying child support, which at this time was like $850 a month. And I was willing to do all that, you know, because I looked at it like my son would probably have a better life if I wasn't, you know, with his mother, just because our relationship wasn't that healthy of a relationship. And that's how I was looking at things, instead of being in the relationship and it ended up going downhill and fighting and arguing all the time. And we're together and my son's there with me every day, but it's not a healthy relationship. So that's how I viewed everything from. And so I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks before I had to actually leave and go to Kansas, and I planned on putting up my house for sale and everything like that. And my girlfriend at the time, she went out one night, and I wasn't really wanting her to go out, and I just told her, you know, I don't mind you going out just as long as you come back at a decent time. Don't come back, you know, like early in the morning, you know, come back like 2 or 3 or whatever. And so she says, I won't. And I said, you know what, if you come back, you know, at an undecent time, me and you are totally, completely done, you know, because I've had enough. And she promised me that she wouldn't, you know, so I took her word for it. And next thing you know, the next day she shows up at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I was hot, I was steaming hot. And as soon as she walked in the door, I just told her, well, you know what it is, we're done and over with. You said you would come home at a decent time, and we're done and over with. And we got in a big old fight, and things went south right away. And some things happened in the past where I called the cops and I was taken to jail just because, falsified information to the police officers. And at this time that we got in an argument, she was living in my house, and she had a key there, and my son was there, and her daughter was there, and everything else. And I was just thinking, man, what should I do? What's my best option here? Because I couldn't call the cops, because I was afraid of what would happen. Like the last time, I would get sent to jail because I called them, and false information. And so I just thought about this, and so I got a suitcase together and threw some clothes in there and just took what was mine. And I kind of done it like, sneaking around kind of deal. And I threw it in my car, and I left. And while I was leaving, she was cussing at me and everything, and still fighting and telling my son, certain things that I didn't agree with. And I had to tell my son that I loved him and I'll always be here for him. It's just me and his mother, we don't work out right now. And so I left the house, and I went from my house and drove over to my mother's house. And during this time I had like 2 or 3 weeks to move to Kansas. I was already accepted the contract. I took it, I written my name down, and they were giving us money for relocation, just a big old deal. And so I had to honor that. It's just not like I could back out at that moment in time. And so I moved over to my mother's house, with just my clothes and everything, and my ex-girlfriend staying in my house with my son and her daughter. And I'm just thinking like, well, I know it sucks, because that's my house, but it is what it is, and I think we'll work it out or get everything situated. So I talked to her on the phone like a couple days later, and I said, I don't mind you staying in my house, but you could only stay like a week, and then you got to move out, And she says, okay, I will. Yeah, I understand, I will. And so a week went by, and she never moved out. So I was like, I'm going to have to get her evicted. So I went down to the court office and I filed an eviction notice to get her moved out of my house. So I think it was like 3 days, and then she had to be out of my property because they served her the papers. And so she was in there 2 days, and we're coming up on the 3rd day, and I got real curious, so I was real nosy, and I just drove by my house just to see if her car was there, see if she was still around the property or what. And her car wasn't in the driveway. And so I didn't know, maybe it was in the garage or whatever. So I pulled up to my house and put the key in the front door and opened the door, and I was just trying to be real sneaky because in case she was still in the property or whatever, I didn't want no conflict. And so I creeped open the door and everything, and I walked inside the house, and I looked around, and my stomach just dropped down to the floor. She took everything for the 2nd time in a row. She took all my furniture, all of the new stuff that I replaced. So like I said back in my testimony, she took everything the first time. This is the 2nd time she took everything. Couches, table, everything that I bought brand new, because she took everything the first time. She took it all for the 2nd time. And I was like, and then she took my new vacuum that I bought. So I was just like, man, this chick is too much, And so I just sat there and I thought, man, what am I going to do? And I think she left me a broom, but she like broke the handle, and it was like a metal handle, and it was just like, oh, I can't believe this, So what I did is I thought I would go over to Lowe's and buy a new lock set and reprogram the garage door opener. So that's what I did, So I changed everything, reprogrammed the garage door opener, and I started cleaning out my house, Just trying to clean it out and get everything ready, because I had to go to Kansas here within, like, I think this was real close, This was like a week and a half or something real close like that. You know, the deadline was getting so close. And so that's what I did the first night. And then the second day, we had to meet at court, you know, for the eviction notice. So I walk into court, and the first thing I did when I went to court, like I went early. The court was like at 10 or something, and I ended up showing up like 8 in the morning or 9 or something. And I went straight into the small claims court, and I had receipts for all the brand new furniture I bought, for everything she took, you know, everything. I had receipts on it all, you know, because I was real meticulous back then, save all my receipts. And I took them into small claims court, and I filed a suit against her, saying that she took my stuff, and I put it on a rush, and they says, well, we can't get it done until like August 22nd. And I says, I need to be in El Dorado, Kansas, like on August 20th. I says, we need to put a rush. And so they finally put a rush on it. I think they were able to get me in like August 16th or something, like 3 or 4 days before I had to be in El Dorado, Kansas. And so, you know, I come out after filing the small claims, and I'm waiting in the lobby, and guess who shows up in the lobby? My ex walks in, because we had court, and she's just smiling. She's smiling because she's like trying to put in my face that she took everything again, you know. And I'm just thinking like, man, I can't believe this. So we went into court and everything, and it was a short court, and they gave me back my keys to my property, and she was out. She said she was out, so that was done and over with. It was squashed. But she walked out of there thinking she got the best of me. Well, what was real funny was like 2 or 3 days later, we had to show back up to court again for the small claims, and she got served paperwork and everything, so there's no way out of it. So we ended up going a few days later for small claims court, and I had all my receipts. I had everything, and told the judge, you know, the first time she moved out, she took everything she wanted. I bought all brand new furniture the second time, and she done it completely again. And the judge totally had compassion on me and everything, and he just pretty much told her, he says, well, this is how it's going to go. He says, you're going to give him back everything that you took out of his house, and if not, we'll just garnish your child support until it's paid off. And I think this was like $9,000 worth of furniture I spent, you know, so I had receipts for everything. And I says, and then we walked out of court, and that was the final word, you know, what he said. Give him back all of his stuff, or our child support will be garnished, you know, for a sum of $9,000. And so we went out of court, and we didn't talk to each other in the court building, because, you know, she was furious at me and I was furious at her. And so we left, and we called each other on the phone. And I says, and I just looked at it like it's material stuff, but she's got to either give me my stuff back or child support gets garnished. So either way you look at it, I'm getting my money back, you know. And so we told her that, and so that very same day we went to court, I already had the U-Haul. You know, this was the 16th. I already had the U-Haul, and I had to leave like town within like 1 or 2 days, you know, to be in El Dorado, Kansas. And it's just crazy. So she decided to meet me at the storage unit, and she said that she would help me load up all my stuff. She put it in a storage unit, all my stuff she took. And there was no guys or nothing like that to help me load up the stuff. It was just me and her. So, you know, this was a real awkward feeling for her, because she just stole all my stuff, and now she's helped me load it up in a U-Haul. So me and her load up all this furniture and everything in the U-Haul. And I shut the door in the U-Haul and everything like that, and I'm totally pissed off. You know, I'm really frustrated with her at this point in time, and I'm just like, I can't believe this, you know. And so she's like, are you gonna buy your son anything for school? Or are you gonna help out with anything? And I was like, are you serious? I says, are you really serious right now? I says, I pay $850 a month in child support, and you're gonna ask me if I'm gonna help my son out with anything above and beyond that large amount of money every month for school clothes? And I says, all right. I says, you know, since I'm such a nice guy, this is exactly what I'm gonna do. So I went in my truck, and I pulled out my my checkbook, and I wrote her a check for $500, and I put exactly on the check for my son's school clothes. his name's Brennan, so that's what I put. And I says, here you go. And I says, you know, I'm really pissed off with everything the way it went, but that's life. It is what it is, you know, and you can't hark on it forever. So that's the last time we've seen each other in 2010. So I drove off with the U-Haul. Long story short, you know, over the next day, my family helped me load up my furniture and my clothes and whatever, and get my house ready to get sold. You know, help me clean up and whatever, you know, because I was on a short time frame. I had to get everything done and get down to Kansas. So I actually left for Kansas, to El Dorado, Kansas, and my Uncle Daniel helped me move up to El Dorado, Kansas. The deal was is he was going to drive my car behind the U-Haul, and I was going to fly him back, because he lived in Las Vegas at the time. So it's just a real weird situation, but that's what it was. So as I'm heading on down to Kansas, you know, there's a lot of stuff that happens, and you just got to stick with me for the end of the story. You know, everything's coming up soon. If you haven't subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. If you're interested in hearing any more, you know, I got plenty more to come. And I'll see you on the next one. Take care.